Well, welcome everyone to debcourtney.com, and today I've got another beautiful special guest with me that is also, fortunately, a friend of mine who, again, I've managed to meet along my life's journey, and I've got Cindy Mathers, like as in your bathers, joining me today. And I seem to have some pretty exciting times driving in my career to Derby, that I get to know all these amazing people. Cindy's one of them. We got to know each other very well in the car on the way there and back some time ago. And I just found Cindy so full of information, so fascinating. And like, again, we'd just been purposely connected and put into a car together so that we could discover each other and learn about each other and see how we were really on a very similar track. I might be a few years behind, or maybe I'm a few years ahead on that track. I don't know which way. But Cindy's joining me. She's had to also leave Broome. And Cindy, I'll let you introduce a little bit more too, but you're now living in the freezing cold and trying to survive the cold, because your journey took you somewhere a bit different, and you knew that that's where you had to be for that time in your life. So, yeah, if you want to explain, fill us in with whatever you want to share as well.
Oh, well, thanks, Deb. It's lovely to connect with you again. And we certainly had many journeys together in Broome. I think it's quite a magical place, and you get a very eclectic bunch of people thrown together in the most unlikely places. And basically, it's a real journey that we're on. And the journey in Broome was about a reconnection for me. I had been to Broome earlier in 1999.
Yeah.
And had trained as I was a nurse, and I'd gone back into the hospitals after 12 years of not working in a clinical setting, doing more occupational health and doctors' clinics. So that was a huge culture shock for me to start with, to come into Broome. I probably should just backtrack a little bit. The way we got to Broome in the first place was because I used to coordinate the activity service in Geelong, and I had an Aboriginal youth group that I actually funded to go to the sequel to Brand New Day, which was a Corrugation Road. And so I funded this Aboriginal youth group to go to this live performance, and I was completely blown away by the energy bursting off that stage. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just the laughter and the colour and the music, and I just thought, oh my goodness, like I was just like, never seen anything like it. And then not long after, I found out that my daughter, who was 15 at the time, was in more trouble than all the kids I was looking after put together. And I just had no idea. And my solution at the time was, well, I'm just going to take her to Broome, because I think she could be in Broome and she could be totally who she is, and she'd just appear normal. Like, if this is what's come out of Broome, this is a place to take her. So within 6 weeks, I had quit the job. I'd rented out the house. I'd relocated the 18-year-old son, who really didn't want to be with his family anyway, and said to my husband, I'm going, and you can come with me if you like, but I need to get her out of here. And we travelled across in a little 2-bed van with the husband on one bed and her on the other, and me on the floor in the middle trying to stop them fighting.
Oh, gosh.
And then within a couple of weeks of getting to Broome, I got a job at the hospital. And then the hospital was amazing, because a lot of the local people worked there. They were the orderlies. A lot of them were nurses, aides or enrolled nurses at the time, and they were studying to be RNs.
Yeah.
But all the local Broome families had members of their family working either in the cooking or the cleaning, so it was just like a big family space, and I was blown away by that as well. And I just had so much gratitude for the Aboriginal people there who took me under their wing. And because I clearly said, I've got no idea. Like, I have never experienced anything like this in my life before. I need your support. And they were just so gracious. And
but you were open to ask for help as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I didn't come in as the white fella who knows everything and you're below me, I'm not listening to you, which they get a lot of still, which I think is just don't get me started on systemic discrimination. Yeah. So the reality was that I was so pushed so far out of my comfort zone there, but it was a matter of life and death. Yeah. Like I just knew I just had to get my daughter out of there, and I had to find a place where she could just be herself and not feel judged, and just give her the experience she needed to find out who she is and what she wanted. And not long after that, she came out as being gay. And I mean, that's perfectly fine in Broome, Yeah. So that was, Broome has just got such a big place in my heart because it's such a multicultural space. And there's so much acceptance of difference. Well, there used to be. There's not so much now. It's a different place altogether. But then I trained to be a teacher and towed my little trailer up to the top end of the Dampier Peninsula and camped out for a few months to do my placement. So that gave me an exposure of actually living and working in a community as well.
Yeah.
So lots of stories have come from that, but the reality is I had an absolute opportunity to truly connect with the country up there and to connect with the people, and to work with them, to support them, in their growth and they in mine. So, yeah, that's been quite a journey.
When you say when you connect to the country, because I know a lot of us sort of talk about feeling that connection, taking your shoes off and going for a walk or going barefoot for a while. What do you think? And I feel that way, I guess, about nature as well. And particularly up there, there's something really strong and spiritual there. But what do you think that idea of connection for other people to understand it is? Like, why is it so important? What is it doing to us when we do that?
Well, I believe that we're all energy. Like, we're just made up of energy. The environment is also energy. The land is also energy. And it's a life force energy that flows through us and flows through the land and through the country. And our energy systems get upgraded and cleansed through being in connection with the energy of the land, or the energy of the sun, or the energy of the wind, of the trees, of the plants. Like, we're all flowing energy. But our systems can get quite toxic. Yeah. And especially stress. Stress is the major, has a major impact on our immune systems. And, like, intuitively, kids know to get outside and play, and that refreshes their energy field. Well, we have become so used to being on our devices and being inside and being locked up in offices and being stuck on the grind that we don't actually we don't get out in nature as much as we could.
No.
And I find, for me, several times in my life I've gone on vision quests or gone on retreats where I know most of it's going to be outside, or so I've traveled in Hawaii and learnt from the kahunas. I've been to Peru and traveled with the shamans from Lake Titicaca up to Machu Picchu in 2012. Wow. And that was a pivotal time on the planet where humanity had a choice. Are they going to move forward and are they going to evolve? And the connection and the energy in those sacred places was extraordinary. And so I sort of, I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to connection. I'm drawn to the Indigenous peoples of the world, because they have a true connection to the land and they have a true connection to each other. And they're very much based on the feminine power principles of connection, community. First of all, being completely connected to your own power center and getting rid of all of the things that would stop you from being your true self. And then once you get into that place, you can then tap into what they call the second power center, which is understanding that you're part of the universal flow.
Yeah.
And tap into that relational field and be able to create transformative spaces to actually evolve. And then once you're in that space, you can then connect from a very deep place to others. So traditionally, Indigenous people have done that.
Yeah.
That's been part of their ceremony. Every Indigenous people around the world that I've done ceremony with, that includes Native Americans, out in Australia, that's what it's all based on. It's based on a deep connection to yourself, a deep connection to the energy field and the universal wisdom, and then a deep connection to each other.
That's really good. I actually just saw something the other day. I don't know if you've read Anita Morjani's book, Dying to Be Me. Yeah. And she was saying the other day, and her explanation, so I'm just looking down, I've got my dog on my lap trying to separate the two. Quite nice, actually, as you're talking, I'm just, feeling that connection to the dog at the same time. And she's explaining that connection that, so say that's your part, and I like the way she explained it, that's there's the people. And all the people think that they're separate. When she had her experience when she passed away was that she realised that actually they're all not separate at all. They're actually joined and they're all connected, and that that was a good way of understanding that we are all connected in some sort of way. Yeah, and certainly understanding that spirituality that comes through with a lot of the Indigenous cultures, that there's that connection to everything that's on that planet and around them and on that earth, and the beings that they're sharing the time with too.
Absolutely. And just the way they accepted me and treated me, like, I'm sure in their lifetime that they had lots of bad experiences with white fellas. And I know even on Torres Strait, I ended up on Thursday Island on contract. And the Torres Strait Islanders are very different to the Aboriginal people. The Torres Strait Islanders are very much, you've got to prove you're worthy of respect before we give it.
Yes.
Whereas the Aboriginal people are very much, well, we'll respect you until you show you're not worthy of respect, and then don't.
Yeah.
So they will give you that opportunity to show you who they are. Who you are, but not on Thursday Island. But then they had a white fella who had ripped off all the funding from their nursing home, which was third world standards. They'd had a white fella nurse come up who had run off with one of their men. They had another one who used to take the car to the pub and get drunk, and then they'd go to use the car the next day and there's no car there. So by the time I got there, it was like, oh no, not another white fella, Yeah. But they were threatened to be closed down because they hadn't quite met the standards.
Yeah.
But it took me a month of demonstrating that I was worthy of respect and that I was there for them. I wasn't there, to rip them off or do the wrong thing, but it was really hard yards, and, you can understand it. So, I think I've just been really blessed though, because I have a real passion for working with Aboriginal people. And when I returned to Broome in 2017, I ended up at Notre Dame teaching there. And, I ended up teaching the community development, alcohol and other drugs and nursing. So, I had the 3 courses on the go, but my passion was supporting the Aboriginal students to get through.
Yeah.
Because I know the difference it makes when you've got Aboriginal people on the ground with the skill sets that are required, who understand the culture and who know how to create a safe space. And and I think just before I left Broome, I had an absolute privilege to work with Vanessa Polina and creating a bush play program using the forest school knowledge that I'd got from overseas. So, and that was just a beautiful blend of Vanessa's understanding and knowledge of the country her connection with the people, the mothers and the kids. And they were in programs because their partners used violence. So we were all trying to work with from a whole family perspective. And we were able to create safe spaces in the bush for these mothers and their children. And we had kids who were selective mute at school. And within 2 hours, we couldn't stop them talking or get them back in the troop carrier to take them home.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and we documented all that, and we're able to measure the improvement in their social emotional well-being. So, you know, and that was just a pilot program, and you know, it sort of wasn't refunded at the time. It wasn't ongoing. But what we showed was it's possible to work together collaboratively. You can bring in the social emotional wellbeing assessments that have been established for outdoors learning and for improving people's resilience and emotional intelligence. You bring all that in, because then you can show to the funding mob, look, this stuff works. But you also create the space for the Aboriginal people to do what they've always done and know that it works.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, to connect with country, with culture, with the plants, with each other. So, yeah, so I've been very blessed. I'm very blessed.
Yes, but you also show your gratitude all the way along too, don't you?
Yeah.
And, you know, we know that the gratitude and the energy that is associated with gratitude impacts, you know, how things can occur universally.
Do you know what I think also, and I'm learning about this through the study I'm doing with the Feminine Power Academy, because I've online, since I had to come back to Melbourne because my mum's 86 and she was going into lockdown again with COVID. So I've been back nearly a year. We've gone into our 5th lockdown as I'm speaking to you. But after I did some soul searching and sort of worked out, oh my God, where do I go from here? Because I just can't see myself going back into mainstream systems. I came across the Feminine Power Academy, some of their free sessions, just to give us a taste of what it was about. And I understood that I'd been working in a masculine power system that has a completely different objective, and that is really about power and control. And, you know, how much can you earn? How much do you own? You know, how many outcomes can you get? Very much driven along those lines of success and competition, right? And then what I learned through this is that there is a feminine power system, which is built completely differently. And what they've found is that females actually want to self-actualize. They want to be the best possible version of themselves. They want to be able to really fulfill their potential, use all their unique skills and all of their gifts to do something that only they can do, to contribute at that level where they have an impact for good on whoever they connect with. And they work very much, this whole work is very much based on a transformational learning container, which understands that we are all connected from a quantum physics perspective, and that the energy is in the field and it's there to be harnessed, and that collectively, through sponsoring and supporting each other and celebrating each other's brilliance and amplifying that brilliance and working together as a team, you can achieve anything. And it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I've been online with women from all over the world who have just done the most extraordinary things, and who have suffered in the masculine power system because they've either been too much, so they've been shut down, or they've been shut down and not listened to because the men really don't cope with the women sort of being of equal power. It's like they feel very threatened by feminine power, and so there's been a real disabling of that, or a real attempt to disable that energy. And, you know, like there's
all those years ago, and they used to burn witches at the stake because they were women that had some sort of extra knowledge or power, and, you know, that only stopped. The last person was burnt only in the 1800s, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 1900s. Like, it was ridiculously not that long ago.
Not that long ago. No.
You know, that was scary because they deemed to have some sort of power.
And power they couldn't control.
Can't have that, can you?
No. So it's interesting because Claire Zammit, who set up the Feminine Power Academy, found that there was three main things that keep women disempowered, and that was lack, shame, and isolation. And so the shame is sort of like the first power center. Like women have been shamed for so long. And shame's a real disabler, you know. And so that's what stops you from connecting to yourself. And then lack is like having a fear or a lack mentality, stops you from tapping into what the universe could provide for you. And then isolation, we've almost been in a competitive sector that it is the masculine power systems. You don't share your resources, you keep everything under your hat. You know, it's very competitive. Whereas one of the things that Claire says is that we can't become ourselves by ourselves.
No.
We actually need each other to support each other to move forward collectively, because that is where the power is. And see, going back to Indigenous knowledges, it's always been the power has been within the community and within the culture and within the country. It's linking all the energy that's available to you to actually to move forward and function.
You can see as well with, you know, shame is such a big thing, and you can see that in the culture as well. And, you know, we've experienced it where students haven't wanted, like they want to come back, but there's that shame that maybe they hadn't done what they said they were going to do, and so they don't turn up, and because of that shame feeling, so then they're actually hindering themselves from progressing forward. Where we, you know, for us as you know, the educators, we didn't mind. We just come back. It doesn't bother us, but it so much bothers them more. They're brought up to think about in that way. Yeah.
Well, but even most women, like a lot of the women that I've met in their feminine power, and I've sort of been in 4 different courses since February, so I'm like total immersion. I'm making the most of being locked in my bedroom in Victoria in shitty weather. Anyway, most of the women, there's shame there, you know, because it's also the conditioning. It's the conditioning of our society to keep women small.
Yeah.
You know, and it's changing. It's definitely changing. And I think the generations coming through now, they're just amazing. You know, like they're not buying in to any of the older programming and conditioning. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, well, working through that, and we look back at, and from that epigenetic level, you've got that at least 14 generations that it's creeping in through. So it takes a little bit to get rid of it, you know, passing through each generation, that belief pattern, that belief system.
We are so impacted. But what I'm loving, I'm also studying quantum physics through a program by Trevor Blake called Transformation. And it's all about learning to tap into the quantum field in order to create the future that you want.
Yeah.
And but it's all based on science. And so I'm only just venturing into that because I really have got my workload full with the feminine power stuff. You know, like I can be up at 2:00 in the morning for a meeting because it's all on American times. Or up at 5 o'clock for a 2-hour session, you know, so, or 8 o'clock, so I'm all over the place. So when I first looked at the schedule, I thought, I couldn't do that. I mean, it's on the other side of the world. But after it's just like beyond what I could comprehend. Like, I don't know if I could do this. But now every day I've got something happening, and poor mum, she's got to look to see if I've got the purple ribbon on the door as to whether I'm online or not. Or
not like the sock on the door, not that one.
No, that's a ribbon. So I tell you what, it's been an interesting journey, and I'm really excited because part of the other Trevor Blake's one is Secrets of Successful Startups. And that's basically learning how to use quantum physics to start up your own business as well.
Okay.
So I'm still working it out, but I'm very interested in creating transformational learning containers. And so I'm doing transformational leadership and transformational coaching training. And that's all based on, it's also based on working in the relational field as well, or the quantum field.
Yeah.
So it's all like next level stuff that is taking me in a completely different direction.
Well, and I think because a lot of people, when you talk about quantum physics, it can sound very, it might fall into that woo-woo kind of category when people hear it, but it's actually one of the oldest sciences around, and it's very measurable, and it's it's a true science. And so now what's trying to happen is we're actually bringing that spirituality type of belief systems, I guess, connecting it. It can now be connected back to quantum physics and the sciences that can be studied. And
well, it absolutely can. And now science and religion are both on the same page, because it can all be proven. Like everything that has been claimed, we've now got the science to actually measure it. And I just think it's extraordinary. I mean, having this time, I've just sort of been stuck online watching series, but there was a fabulous series that came on called Proven Breakthroughs Backed by Science, or something like that. And on the trauma, because a lot of my passion, I've done a lot of trauma training, a lot of healing from trauma myself as well. I intuitively over the years, I had used nature, drumming with the djembes, and art.
Yeah.
And now it turns out that science has shown that the most effective ways of dealing with trauma is, number one, nature-based therapies. 2 was dance and movement. And 3 were the creative arts, which is music and art therapy. So, like for the science now to be backing that up, because I've had to fight for funding to do programs like that over the last 20 years, because the evidence hasn't been there, but the evidence is all there now. And I just think it's really exciting, like the capacity that we have to truly understand what is happening behind the scenes. Now we've got all the measurement tools to actually measure it. And it's just like I trained to be a nurse 40 years ago. We barely knew what happened in the brain 40 years ago. Like you'd learn the basic anatomy. You knew nothing about physiology, nothing. So when you look how far that's come.
Yeah.
The neuroscience now is quite extraordinary, and what they can measure and they can demonstrate what's actually happening when we have a stress response, and when we go into the fight flight mode, or when we're using our right brain, or when we're using it can tell us so many things.
And I even just catching up now finally, for so long, and with stomal therapy background, and we were just, the bowel is this, that's it, from mouth to backside. And
that's right. You've got the basics.
Yeah, that's it. And now, really we're finally catching up with the idea of that brain gut connection, that our gut really is our other brain, and what's going on when we're having to chop so much out of it too. There's that intrinsic part of us that's helping us figure things out.
Chop it out. That's the same with the heart having a magnetic field, so much more powerful than our brains. Our brains really are. I heard a really good description that the brain is just like a steering wheel. Like it's all it is. It's a steering wheel. It's up to you as to what you put in there. And if you actually come from the heart space, you can actually have such an impact on how you think and how you function. You can put the right fuel in the car, where, if you're sort of mindless and you're just hovering around with thoughts that are only what you've known, there's nothing new comes from the thoughts. It's the heart space, when you expand that you can actually create new thought, new way of being.
Yeah, I think, and that's the part where I guess with women, we want to come from the heart space, have always come from the heart space, but it's become driven out of us, I suppose. Do you think that's the case?
I think a lot of it's been labelled as over the top, neurotic, you're too emotional, you know, it hasn't been received. Like it's been given, but it hasn't been received. But I think that's all a fear-based response, because it's such a powerful space to live from the heart space, you know. And I think now actually we need to be really gentle with our men, because everything is shifting and the men are having to learn how to relate from the feminine within them. And most of the men, you know, especially our generation, has been conditioned out of them to respond to their feminine side. But more and more, and just as the women need to embrace their masculine side, like we both can be so balanced if we have no fear around, you know, what we feel.
Yeah.
And being able to express that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But having that freedom to express it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not having it knocked out of you, you know. And a lot of that, the generation of the men that I've been with, they were never encouraged to express their emotions.
No.
You know, they were a sook if they showed any sort of emotion. But, you know, as we know, like suppressing your emotions and not being able to express how you truly feel has a huge impact on your health and well-being.
Yeah, because it's such an internal turmoil and stress. And as you said, stress is like the biggest cause of disease. That's why we need to cuddle things like this a little bit more often.
Oh, the dogs, yeah, absolutely.
I did see she saw a post the other day, you know, do we allow dogs in hospitals? And
yes, we do.
I think, you just have to see in aged care facilities how having, you know, an animal there that they can just stroke, you know, and just be there for, and that's the other thing that we're seeing now coming out, is that science back in a way, you know, where kids are taking a support dog to school
yes.
to help calm them and help, you know, and that's the kind of energy that they're giving off that we can help heal our bodies as well, because that reciprocal energy that we can.
Absolutely. I saw a fabulous, there's been a docu-series on over the weekend, and it was about intuition, and they had the pet communicator on, and they had a dog who was with a veteran. Yeah. And she was talking to the dog, and then the animal communicator was talking to the owner. And basically, you know, because the owner was sort of saying, well, when I take him to big events, he doesn't seem very comfortable. And then the dog saying to the communicator, yeah, that's because the energy is so overwhelming. You know, like I don't know if I'm meant to try and take on all their stress, or whether I'm just meant to stick with your stress, or, you know, like when you hear the voice of the animals, it just gives you such a good understanding of what they're actually doing. You know, like it's quite extraordinary, and you can see the impact that a therapy dog has. Not just so it won't just be that child in the classroom that is impacted by that animal.
Yeah,
that animal will be having a flow-on effect to everybody in that classroom. And it's interesting because I'm not an animal, but I used to work as an integration aide, and I might have morphed into one. But I saw that impact, you know, because I was there for one kid, but I was able to expand my energy to support all the kids who needed support.
Yeah,
that made such a difference in the classroom. Yeah. Because often kids just need to have that, you know, that feeling of safety. If they don't feel safe in the classroom, you can't learn.
Yeah.
You know, so it's such an interesting journey. I mean, so much is coming in, and I just think it's an amazing time to be on the planet. And
you know what, you always used to blow me away with all the stuff you could talk about with astrology and what's going on with the stars and numerology and all that. Your repertoire is huge.
Well, I have an addiction to study. Or learning. I'm going to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and, you know, like I just think we have such an opportunity to create a new world.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of what I'm focusing on is developing the art of creating transformational containers to be able to facilitate educators in particular to tap into their own brilliance, but also to tap into the brilliance of the students or the learners they're with.
Yeah.
You know, because we have so much internal knowing. Like if we truly connect with who we are and to the universal field, the sky's the limit as to what we can achieve and who we can be.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think just creating safe containers for that to come forward. And, you know, that's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment with Feminine Power. We come online, but then we break off into small groups and we have activities where we support each other. And in a leadership pod, there's 8 of us all doing our own projects from all around the world, and we meet up every week. And, you know, we check in with each other and we keep each other accountable for what we said we were going to do. And we resource and support each other.
Yep.
So like just, you know, in the last few days, there's this amazing young lady in Uganda who's wanting to create healing for her culture through the elders. And a lot of the work I've done in the last 20 years, I can just hand over to her and save her all that time and fill in the gaps so that she can step into the role that she's here to do.
Yeah, so that's wonderful, and that's the idea of abundance, isn't it? Where, you know, yes, people are so protective and ego involved with, no, you can't have this, you can't have that. No. You know what? There's more of that to come.
Absolutely.
Sharing, caring.
Well, that's the feminine power structure. That is the feminine power, because collaboration, cooperation. You know, like today, there was this amazing lady who's on the United Nations setting up, or she worked for them, setting up her own Peace Corps. And then there's another young lady who's doing a similar thing, you know, and you've got the youthful knowledge and skills and savvy of a young woman doing something, and you've got this amazing resource sitting there who can just say, well, I'd love to work with you. You know, and that is the true energy of the feminine spirit, is how can we support each other? How can we sponsor each other? How can we amplify each other's brilliance? Because the whole collective benefits then.
Yeah, yeah. And that I'm so grateful that that's the sort of environment I got to have around working, you know, at the once I started, it's amazing how things happen, isn't it? Once I really started into that, you know, personal development side of things, and then kept on expanding and, you know, became a transformologist and all that, the people just kept coming. The people that seem to have that same openness to learning, openness to sharing, openness to providing support and caring for each other just kept coming through the door.
Well, we create a magnetism. Once we tap into the energy field of the universe, because it's always organizing around our success, once we tap into that, and then we tap into the energy fields of those that we're connecting with, we create a magnetism that actually attracts to us what we need. It's like we create a bit of a hole in the, you know, like the universe abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we've got all this to give, so someone better turn up to receive it. You know what I mean?
I just kept getting sucked into my vacuum, and then you came through the door, and geez, I was so lucky.
But I think also what you experienced in Broome is it takes an extraordinary amount of courage to actually step out of your comfort zone and head to the other side of the country, you know, not knowing what's going to happen, but being open to possibility. And, you know, having that trust that something will unfold. You know, like if we never step out into the unknown, then how do we know, you know, what could emerge for us?
So what would be a couple of the best tips that you could think of for women that are still fearing that stepping out?
I think one of the big things that helped me was understanding the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. So I've got my little trusty list here.
Yeah, I
have it up to remind myself, because you can get very caught up in victim mode, and you can get very pissed off with how things are, and you can get so cranky it can make yourself sick. And that is usually a result of having a fixed mindset, which means that you're believing that there's not enough to go around, there's not enough resources to go around. You think you have to know all the answers to everything, and if you don't know the answers, then there's something wrong with you. You just see problems, and you see it as a problem, and you sort of get stuck on it. And you see mistakes and breakdowns and failures as something that's bad. And others' power and success is a threat to you. You know, this is all in a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And the thing that feedback as well, you know, women tend to take feedback personally. 90% of women take feedback personally, whereas men don't. Men just take it on board and keep going. But women take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We aren't a separate entity. We are the whole thing. So if you're saying it about one thing, it means everything.
That's right. It's the way we interpret it.
Yeah. Have you seen that what's his name? Steve Gungor with a nothing box?
No.
I like to share that one, but is it Steve? Well, I've just had anyway, Gungor, a very funny little skit about how different we are from men and women and the nothing box, and you know, we are everything, and they've just got them all compartmentalized. So if you're going to give that feedback, it just goes into that box over there, and it doesn't touch that box, so that box is okay. No, and that box right aisles is just one big fat shipping container, and it all goes into the one big shipping container, and it affects us really badly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing is avoiding conflict, you know, and if you're vulnerable, it's shameful. So a lot of those behaviours is what I ended up adopting, because beaten down by the system in bloody obstacle after obstacle. But then a growth mindset sees that there's enough of everything for everybody if we shared it. And what I love is that we don't need to know the answers with the growth mindset. We learn to live in the questions. We have a curiosity about life. I wonder how that's going to unfold. And with problems, there's always a creative solution. Like, you know, if you don't get stuck, we'll always just look for the creative solution. And if we see our breakthroughs and failures as opportunities for learning, you know, like that's a big thing. And what I love about the women is that, you know, we're not threatened by other people's success. Like, we share what we have. We share our resources knowing that it's for the good of all. And this is probably a big one for me was rather than avoid conflict, just embrace it as normal. You know, like, conflict is normal. But part of the feminine power is that, well, these superpowers, which actually are like these extra deep personal attributes that you can develop to help you be transformative in whatever you do. And one of them is being able to hold paradox. And that is about, you could be holding the extremities of two things, but it doesn't disable you. Like, you can see things this way, see things that way, and realize that they can actually balance each other out rather than being stuck on this is how it is and that's wrong. Yeah. So, you know, that's the skill to develop. And also vulnerability. The opposite to vulnerability is connection. And if we can let go of our vulnerability and embrace connection, then that in itself is very life-affirming. So those things really stood out to me when I first started the Feminine Power Journey, because, you know, I had a lot of fixed mindsets and I was very upset and very broken by the systems. Yeah. And I got very angry and very victimized by it all, because I just could not see the fairness in it, especially with the racism and discrimination that's now in Broome. Much worse than it was 20 years ago when I was there. So that just frustrated the heck out of me. But I'm learning different ways now to deal with it. And it's like the growth mindset is, you know, being able to live in the questions, you know, like, and knowing that the universal energy will right itself. Yeah. And to be part of that solution rather than part of the problem.
And with your little, universal knowledge of stars and alignments and moons and things, what are you kind of seeing for us?
Well, we're coming up for a full moon next weekend, and it is in Aquarius, and we're coming to a complete reset. Like, there's so much going on globally. It's like a time of rapid waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see the crisis all around the world, and people sort of say, no, we've had enough of this. What is going on here, you know? And I just, on this series I watched on the weekend, it said that you only need 10% of the population to wake up, and the law of physics says the rest will just be lifted up with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's what we're seeing happening around the world now, is people are really starting to ask questions and really starting to wake up to what is going on here. What are we not being told? Who do we believe? Like, what is really going on our planet? And I think it's just all of the astrology is aligning for that to actually happen. So, yeah, so pretty interesting times.
Very interesting times.
You wouldn't be dead for quids, would you?
No. For a minute there, I thought you said you wouldn't be dead for quids. And no one want to be me, seriously. But dead also, I wouldn't be dead for quids, no.
My dad used to say that. It's a very old-fashioned saying. It's really funny because when you're online with people from all over the world, you come out with comments like that, they just look at you blankly as if to say, what on earth are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't realise the amount of colloquialism that you have until you go somewhere else. And even though you speak the same language, you know, with the amount of travelling that you and I have done, you think it's all quite normal, and you're like, oh, yeah, I know we speak English, all of us, but obviously we have very different ways of doing it sometimes.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. But, you know, I think it's just a really exciting time to be on the planet. And I think if we can adopt a growth mindset where we just embrace change, and really, we really just have to understand that life is never going back to the way it was, you know. So it really is time just to step into the best version of ourselves and let go of our crap, you know. It just all it does is weighs you down and make you sick.
And you know, to be able to have that that wellness, you know, that could be a big change in the way things are set up as well, is if the more people are starting to understand that correlation and how it works, and the mind works, the brain works, the neuroplasticity works, all of that. When you can start to get all of that, is you know, where we're starting to need. It's more about the maintaining health rather than trying to restore health eventually. You know, like we're in such a trying to always restore health or get back to health. Well, actually, we just want to be in health.
Yes.
Not get back to it. We just want to be in it. That is who we are. We are a being that's supposed to be health, but we're putting all that imbalance in there. That
well, we have the capacity to heal ourselves. You know, of the worst possible things. Like our bodies are designed to self-heal, just like a lizard can regrow its tail. You know, but we've been conditioned to believe that that's not possible, and that we need to give out the power of our health and well-being to other. Well, until we actually take that back and acknowledge that we can actually heal ourselves, and we can intuitively tune into what our bodies can handle and what they can't. You know, like our intuition is an amazing tool that, you know, if we tap into it, it can really save us a lot of grief.
Yeah. And have they explained to you what's the best way for people to tap into it? Because I think a lot of the time we know it's there. It's but if you're not using it all the time, how do you get back to tapping into that intuition? How do you get back to listening to it and trusting that that's what's speaking to you and not something else that's speaking to you?
Well, one of the big things is to get grounded in nature, you know, because that will bring you into your body to start with. A lot of people can't tap into intuition because they're stuck in their head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can actually breathe right down into even the space between your hips, you know, and just consciously take yourself there and know that your gut instinct is a real instinct, you know, like that is your intuition. And just connecting from that place. If you know your thoughts are coming from up here, then it's very unlikely it's your intuition. You know, it's that gut feeling of, you know, like I know there's major decisions I've made in my life where I've had the gut feeling was like, I don't think this is very wise, but I've gone ahead anyway. And it's, you know, 7 years down the track, 20 years down, whatever. But, you know, like it's about becoming aware that you actually, it's probably in your best interest to listen to that voice or that hunch or that gut feeling, you know, or the, you know, it's all about being in your body and in tune with the messages that your body picks up.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not conditioned to do that. We spend a lot of time disconnected from our bodies. And so it's very hard to tune into your intuition when you're stuck in your head.
Yeah.
So breath, nature, movement is a really good way to get into your body, whether it be yoga or dance or walking. Yeah. And just listen. Start becoming aware of what is around you. Listen for the birds and you know, really tune in to the vibrational energy of what's around you.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Even if you're going out into your backyard.
Yes.
You don't have to go out bush somewhere, like just getting into that backyard and around. I find I had this conversation last night that weeding's not gardening, but I said I love weeding because it is that mindfulness, you know, concentrating on pulling out that weed that's, I don't like having the weeds in the garden, but they're there.
It's also for me. It's also symbolic. Like that is such a great practice. Like as you're consciously pulling out the weeds, what else do you want to let go of in your life? You know, like you can make it a real opportunity for recentering and grounding and connecting.
Yeah. And
it's also creating that quiet space. Like you can't hear your intuition if you've got your media going the whole time, if you've got chaos all around you, if you're flat strapped, you know, like you have to have silence or at least be in a space where you can have enough time to actually register what's being said to you.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, you've got so much to share. You've always got so much. I used to love coming and sitting in your office having a chat. We miss that, and having that connection with people in an office where you do have that. So I think if you haven't got that around you, then maybe consider where you're working, because it makes such a difference when you've got people that you can be open with, chat with, honest with, share feelings with, not judged along the way, and
absolutely,
and really help each other to find, and that was that camaraderie that we had, finding ways to help each other and supporting each other and encouraging, knowing that we're all capable.
We're all there in the same boat, and let's throw in what we know. And I think also, I mean, that's what I've loved about being online on Zoom with people from all over the world. I mean, I recently participated in an event where there was 1,000 women online over 3 days, participating in this absolutely amazing transformational container where you could see the rapid transformation of people as we went through the processes of connecting with the power centers.
Well, that's actually been measured as well.
Yes, well, I'm not surprised, because you could see it, you could feel it, and you could see it. Even though I'm on the other side of the world, from where all this was being put together. And we had 68 countries from around the world of women all stepping into their feminine power and saying, right, how can we be a force for good in this world?
That's so exciting. I know Joe Dispenza has done a lot of measuring in that sort of thing. And if you listen to his or read his Becoming Superhuman, talks about that measurement of a group of people and how it is physical and tangible to actually see or measure the difference. And I know even just from the experience of going through Creatrix myself, but also going through the Creatrix Transformology course, all 12 of us that were in that group of people that went through the course together, by the end of it, we looked different. We looked younger. We looked like we'd all had facelifts. We just, that amazing transformation that was taking place, just knocking those beliefs that weren't serving us out the ballpark was you could see it on the faces, like less wrinkles, less it's amazing what this can do to people. So, you know, for any women that can come across this sort of healing process, it's life-changing permanently.
Well, it is life-changing, and it all starts with self-love. And I think the beautiful thing with the feminine power stuff I've been studying is it's all about supporting each other in that journey, that we don't become ourselves by ourselves. You know, there's so much more power in the collective field. And traditionally, women have supported and worked together for the good of their families and their communities and the world. You know, that's been a traditional thing.
Yeah, I love that. We don't become ourselves
by ourselves.
Yeah, that's great.
Claire Zammit. Aussie girl over there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Creatrix, an Aussie girl, brought it up, you know, like there are so many amazing women out there that think they're just doing their everyday little life, but it's life-changing for others. So
yeah, absolutely. I think we're in really exciting times. I think it's time for the women to stand up and truly embrace who they are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been my pleasure.
It's always a joy. I love it. I'm just learning so much from so many people. And I'm sure that those that are watching this are learning a lot too from the wealth of knowledge that's out there that people have that just might not get the opportunity to share it the same way. And, you know, this is I always think I have this bit of a love-hate relationship with technology, as I'm sure you do. But, you know, it's able to get some more information out there on a grander scale. And, you know, it's funny talking about this. The one that's on my lap's the girl, and she's feeling
the love.
Cuddling me the whole time. She just wants quiet time. So thank you for joining me, and we'll have this up. I love that quote. It's a really good quote as well to share with everyone. And you've just got so much to offer, Cindy. It's amazing. Your knowledge is so great. Steph. And your heart is always in the right place, and that's what I love.
Well, I think we're very blessed.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we just need to know that the world has to go through. It's a bit like I see the world is in the chrysalis at the moment. It's this mush, absolute mush. It's got no idea whether it's Arthur or Martha, but, you know, the blueprint there for the butterfly is there.
Yeah.
And as we emerge from this, we will begin to become the butterfly.
Yeah. We might all hope for that, and I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah. And I'm so glad we wore very colour coordinated shirts today.
Oh yes, we did well, didn't we? And you see my Andara. This is my little crystal that's been.
Wow!
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
It's been a very grounding energy for me.
So what's that one?
Andara is really the higher vibrational energies of the new earth.
Okay.
So it's just sort of helps to hold that space. Yeah.
Okay. Andara. Remember that one, guys? Maybe have a look at that up and see what you can get. I might have a little look too.
Yeah.
And it matches your shirt so beautifully.
Yes. And these are from Peru. This is chrysocolla, but you can't see.
A little bit. And what's the picture behind?
That is the new dream. And that is Barbara Evans, an English lady. And I'll see if I can get up there. I had this sent over from England in 2015 when everything had hit the fan again in an organisation I was working for. And I thought, right, I need to create a new dream. And so that's an artwork that's done with all the crystals underneath the table. And the energies of all the archangels have come in there, and it's a sacred mandala with sacred geometry. So it's just a really powerful image to bring in the new dream. And since 2015, I don't know how many states I've lived in, how many countries I've been to. Just be careful what you wish for.
Might not be happening just for a little while with the country thing in states, but we can go where we want in our mind. And
we absolutely can. So yes, so I'm feeling very blessed at the moment, and very grateful that I have found something that makes sense of the rest of my life. As to why I haven't survived in the masculine power systems, because they actually don't like free thinkers.
I think it's really important that people know that, when we talk about this kind of thing, and we talk, obviously I work specifically with women, and that's where you'll be looking as well. It's not a man-bashing thing either.
No, not at all.
It's about the fact that we are different and we accept the differences, yet how do we work together with those differences? And when you understand the differences, why that, when you get the idea of the Mark Gungor, when you get the idea of the boxes and they can't see, and you're like, how can you not see it? It just makes it a bit easier to deal with and know, all right, I can see it and it annoys the hell out of me, but it's not obvious to them because they can do these things that I can't do or can't see.
Absolutely. And when I talk about feminine power principles, I'm just talking about a feminine way of seeing the world. So like we all have a masculine and a feminine side. The men have a feminine side. I have a masculine side. So I'm just talking about power principles and how the power plays out differently if it's coming from a female perspective, which is all about community, connection, collaboration for the good of all, not in it for your own own wealth at the cost of others' wealth. Whereas traditionally in the patriarchal or the masculine power systems are the ones that have created such a big divide between the haves and the have-nots, that have bred the racism and discrimination. So that is, it's not the men, it's just a masculine way of being in the world. Whereas a feminine way of being in the world is the opposite. And that's what the world will go to in order for everybody to have a fair go. So, but it's going to take some doing.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing at the moment is the dismantling of the masculine power systems around the globe.
Okay.
And that's why there's so much, and they're fighting like heck to stay in power. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Watch this space.
Watch this space. All right. Thanks so much, Cindy. And we will again put if there's any links that you want to share, we'll pop them in the comments down below. I might put that the nothing box one in the comments as well.
Yes.
It's a bit of a sharing one. That's quite a funny way.
I'll send you the link. So yes, I'll send you the link to Feminine Power Academy, so that if people want to have a look at what I'm talking about, they can go on and have a look. But it's certainly been a game changer for me because it's given me perspective, and it's helped me to find my tribe, other women who are here to self-actualize, who want to become the best they can and want to make a contribution to creating a better planet. So
finding the tribe's really great. I know I've got that amongst our Transformology tribe. Also, I've got, if you want to join the Discovery of Your True Self tribe as well on Facebook, please feel free to join and share if there's anyone that you know of that can, wants to be part of that, where it's a safe space to be able to share ideas, thoughts, feelings, questions, where people can have that input as well. It's not just me, it's but I've set it up for that space to be available for women to be part of. So yeah, have a look that up. Anyone that would like to be part of that, I'll pop that as well in a link below. But thank you for joining your true self and joining me. And hopefully we will be able to share this again one day soon, this space together, and figure out what has happened in this, watching this space, and what else we can take from there.
Yes. What am I up to? Hopefully by then I'll be in sunny Coffs Harbour.
Yes, we've seen more changes, but that's been adaptable and allowing for changes to happen. And we spoke about that in one of my other interviews with someone, is that, allowing for change and growing,
embracing change.
Embracing change.
Yeah, and I think seriously that's going to be the most healthy way to go through life from here on in, because there's going to be that much radical shifting and changing. Is just embrace the unknown and just to live in the questions. Be curious, like at the moment we've got lockdown and there's a COVID scare in Coffs. I'm just curious how the universe is going to orchestrate us getting from here to there, but somehow it's going to happen.
It will happen. I know you, and I know the universe.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah, lovely to connect with you, and thank you for putting the effort into creating spaces like this for women to connect, because not everybody has the opportunity to, do what I'm doing. I'm literally doing whatever I feel like, whenever I feel like it. There's so many women.
Best way to be.
Yeah. So no, it's I really appreciate the effort you're putting in, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for joining me.
See you later. Bye bye.